The sound of my heels clicking against the marble floor of my penthouse echoes through the spacious living room as I make my way to the floor-to-ceiling windows. Manhattan stretches out before me like a glittering promise fulfilled. The same city that once felt impossibly vast when I was a little girl, pressing my face against the window of our cramped Brooklyn apartment, dreaming of something better. Now, at 32, I own this piece of the sky, 43 floors above the streets that raised me. I pour myself a glass of wine, a 2015 Bordeaux that costs more than what my mother used to spend on groceries in a month, and let the irony settle in my chest like a familiar ache. The woman who couldn't be bothered to pack me a lunch for school now has my address. The woman who never attended a single parent-teacher conference somehow found out about my success. My phone buzzes against the granite countertop, the vibration sharp and insistent. The caller ID makes my blood run cold. Mom! I haven't seen that name on my screen in over 3 years. My finger hovers over the decline button. A reflex born from decades of disappointment, but something stops me. Maybe it's curiosity. Maybe it's the wine. Maybe it's the part of me that never stopped being that 8-year-old girl who just wanted her mother to notice her. Hello. My voice comes out steadier than I feel. Sarah? Sarah, honey, is that you? Her voice is smaller than I remember. Worn around the edges, like an old photograph. It's me. I walk back to the window, needing the city lights to remind me who I am now. How did you get this number? I asked around. Your cousin Jennifer gave it to me. Sarah, I know we haven't talked in a long time, but I really need to see you. Can we meet somewhere? I have something important to tell you. The laugh that escapes me is sharp and bitter. Important. Now it's important. Where was this urgency when I was 12 and had to walk myself to the hospital with a broken wrist? Where was it when I graduated valedictorian and sat in that auditorium, scanning the crowd for a face that never showed up? Sarah, please. I know I made mistakes, but I need help. And you're my daughter. You're all I have left. All she has left. Not, I love you. Not, I missed you. Just a statement of her own desperation. It's so typically her that I almost smile. Almost? What kind of help? I ask, though. I already suspect the answer. I lost my apartment. I've been staying with friends, but... Sarah, I can't keep living like this. I heard about your success, about your beautiful place in Manhattan. I thought maybe we could try again. Maybe I could stay with you for a while, just until I get back on my feet. The audacity takes my breath away. 24 years of neglect, and now she wants to waltz into the life I built from scratch. I think about the little girl who used to practice conversations with her mother in the mirror, preparing perfect sentences that might finally make her parent pay attention. I think about the teenager who stopped coming home after school because the silence was too heavy. I think about the young woman who put herself through college with 3 jobs and student loans, who never once got a congratulatory call or a care package from home. I need to think about it. I say finally, Sarah, I wouldn't ask if I wasn't desperate. I know we have issues, but I'm your mother. Doesn't that count for something? The word mother sounds foreign in her mouth when directed at me. She was never much of a mother, more like a distant roommate who occasionally shared the same space. I close my eyes and see my childhood bedroom, with its peeling wallpaper and the posters I put up to cover the water stains. I see myself at the kitchen table, doing homework alone while she watched television in the next room. I see graduation photos, where I'm smiling with teachers and friends, but never with her. I'll call you back, I say, and hang up before she can respond. The silence in my apartment feels different now, charged with the weight of the past. I walk through my home, really look at it, the custom Italian furniture, the original artwork, on the walls, the kitchen that's bigger than the entire apartment I grew up in. Everything here tells the story of who I became, despite her, not because of her. I built this life with my own hands, my own determination. After college, I started as a junior marketing coordinator at a small firm, working 18-hour days and living on ramen noodles. An ambition. I had a vision, not just for my career, but for my life. I wanted beauty, stability, success. I wanted to never again feel small or forgotten or invisible. The climb wasn't easy. There were nights when I questioned everything, when the loneliness felt like a physical weight on my chest. But I had something that drove me forward. The absolute certainty that I would never again be at the mercy of someone else's indifference. I earned every promotion, every raise, every opportunity. When I finally started my own digital marketing agency 5 years ago, I was ready. I had the skills, the connections, and most importantly, the hunger. Now my agency employs 37 people. We handle campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. Last year, Forbes featured me in their 30 under 35 list. I own this penthouse outright. No mortgage. I have a BMW in the garage downstairs and a wardrobe full of designer clothes. I travel to Paris for long weekends and Tokyo for business meetings. I am everything that frightened, invisible little girl dreamed of becoming. So why does my mother's call feel like a crack in the foundation of everything I've built? I pour another glass of wine and settle into my favorite armchair. Soft cream, leather that probably cost more than she makes in 6 months. The city glitters below me, and I try to imagine her out there somewhere, in whatever temporary situation she's escaped to. Is she in another cramped apartment, surrounded by other people's furniture and other people's lives? Is she as lonely as she sounds? The thought catches me off guard. I've spent so many years being angry at her that I forgot she might be sad too. But then I remember all the times I tried to connect with her as a child. All the drawings I made that she glanced at and set aside. All the questions I asked that she answered with distracted murmurs. I remember the birthday when I was 9, when I spent my allowance on a card and a small plant for her, hoping it might make her smile. She accepted both with the same flat expression she used for everything else. "Thank you," she had said. Not even reading the card, where I'd written, "I love you, Mommy," in my careful 3rd grade handwriting. The plant died on the windowsill a week later, and I never gave her another gift. My phone buzzes with a text message. It's from my best friend Rachel. "Dinner tomorrow. I have news about the Thompson account." Rachel has been my closest friend since business school. She knows about my childhood, about the careful walls I've built around myself. She's one of the few people who understands why I've never brought anyone home to meet family. Because there is no family to meet, I text back, "Can't tomorrow. Family situation." Even typing those words feels strange. 3 dots appear immediately. "Family, are you okay?" I start to type an explanation, then delete it. How do you explain 24 years of complicated history in a text message? How do you tell someone that the woman who raised you was physically present but emotionally absent? That you learned to parent yourself because she couldn't be bothered? Instead, I type, "I'll call you later." The evening stretches ahead of me, filled with the kind of silence I usually treasure. This is my sanctuary, my proof that I made it out and made something of myself. But tonight, it feels less like a sanctuary and more like a beautiful prison. All this luxury, all this success, and I'm still that little girl waiting for her mother to notice her. I walk to my home office. a room with built-in mahogany shelves, and a desk that faces Central Park. On the shelf behind my computer, there's a small framed photo, me at my college graduation, alone but smiling. I had sent her an invitation, even though I knew she wouldn't come. Part of me, the part that never learned to stop hoping, thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe her daughter graduating summa cum laude from Columbia would be enough to pull her away from whatever was more important than me. It wasn't. I had thrown my cap in the air with 300 other graduates, and when I looked around for someone to hug, to celebrate with, I found myself surrounded by families I didn't belong to. That night, I made myself a promise. I would never again put myself in a position where her absence could hurt me. Now she wants to live in my home, to benefit from the success she had no part in creating. The woman who couldn't be bothered to attend my elementary school play wants to sleep in my guest room, eat food I'll provide, exist in the space I carved out for myself in this unforgiving city. But there's something else lurking beneath my anger, something I don't want to examine too closely. After all these years, she called me. After all this time, she reached out. It's not the call I dreamed of as a child. No apology, no acknowledgement of what she put me through, but it's contact. And despite everything, despite the years of therapy and the careful construction of my independent life, part of me is glad she called. That realization terrifies me more than her request ever could. 3 days later, I'm sitting in a coffee shop in Brooklyn, not far from our old neighborhood. I chose this place deliberately, neutral territory that still carries the weight of our shared history. Through the window, I can see the bodega, where I used to buy penny candy with my lunch money, the bus stop, where I waited alone on so many mornings, while other kids walked to school with their parents. I arrived 15 minutes early, a habit ingrained from years of professional meetings. I order a latte and choose a table near the back, where I can see the entrance, but won't be easily spotted by anyone passing by. My hands shake slightly as I check my phone. No new messages, no cancellations. She's actually coming at exactly 2 p.m. She walks through the door and I barely recognize her. The woman I remember was taller somehow, more formidable in her indifference. This woman looks smaller, older, worn down by whatever circumstances brought her to my phone number. Her hair, once a rich brown, is now mostly grey and pulled back in a ponytail that does nothing to hide the lines around her eyes. She's wearing jeans that have seen better days and a sweater that looks like it came from a thrift store. For a moment, we just look at each other across the coffee shop. I see her taking in my appearance, the tailored blazer, the designer handbag, the confidence I wear like armor. I wonder what she sees. Her successful daughter, a stranger who happens to share her DNA. The little girl she left behind, Sarah, she says, as she approaches the table, and her voice carries a note of wonder, as if she can't quite believe I'm real. Mom. The word feels rusty in my mouth. She sits down across from me, and I notice her hands are shaking as she places them on the table. You look beautiful, successful. I always knew you were smart, but this... She gestures vaguely at me, at my obvious prosperity. Did you? The question comes out sharper than I intended, because I don't remember you ever telling me that. Her face flushes, and she looks down at her hands. I know I wasn't the best mother. I know I made mistakes. Mistakes? I lean back in my chair, creating more distance between us. Is that what we're calling it now? Because I remember it differently. I remember a woman who acted like I was an inconvenience, who couldn't be bothered with parent-teacher conferences, or birthday parties, or any of the normal things mothers do. It wasn't that simple, Sarah. You don't understand what my life was like then. Then explain it to me. I'm 32 years old, and I still don't understand why my own mother couldn't love me. The words hang in the air between us, raw and painful. I see her flinch, and part of me feels vindicated. But another part, the part that's still 8 years old and desperately seeking approval, wants to take it back. I did love you, she says quietly. I do love you. I wasn't good at showing it. You weren't good at showing it. I laugh, but there's no humor in it. Mum, you barely acknowledged my existence. When I was 10, I broke my arm falling off my bike, and you didn't even take me to the hospital yourself. You called Mrs. Patterson from next door to drive me because you didn't want to leave your soap opera. I was scared, she says, and for the first time, her voice cracks. I was so scared all the time. Your father left when you were 3, and I had no idea how to be a mother. I was working 2 jobs just to keep us afloat, and I was exhausted and overwhelmed. And I know that's no excuse, but I was drowning, Sarah. Every single day I was drowning. I study her face, looking for signs of manipulation or self-pity, but all I see is genuine pain. It doesn't excuse anything, but it's the first real explanation she's ever offered. You could have talked to me, I say. You could have explained what was happening, instead of just shutting me out. Do you know what it's like to be a child and feel like your own mother can't stand to look at you? I know I hurt you. I know I failed you. But Sarah, I need you to understand. I never thought I was good enough for you. You were so smart, so capable, even as a little girl. You did your homework without being asked. You made your own lunches. You took care of yourself better than I ever could. I thought maybe you were better off without me interfering. I was 8 years old. I didn't want to take care of myself. I wanted my mother to take care of me. I wanted you to help me with my homework, not because I couldn't do it, but because I wanted to spend time with you. I wanted you to make my lunch, because it would mean you were thinking about me while you did it. Tears are streaming down her face now, and I realize I'm crying too. All these years of anger and hurt are pouring out of me, and I can't stop them. I'm sorry, she whispers. I'm so sorry. I know it doesn't change anything, but I need you to know that letting you down is the biggest regret of my life. We sit in silence for a long moment, both of us crying in this little Brooklyn coffee shop. I think about all the conversations I imagined having with her over the years, all the angry speeches I practiced in my head. None of them included this raw honesty, this mutual vulnerability. What happened? I ask finally. Why are you homeless? Now, she wipes her eyes with a napkin and takes a shaky breath. I lost my job 6 months ago. I was working as a receptionist at a dental office, but they had to make cuts. At my age, it's hard to find something new. I used up my savings paying rent, and when I couldn't make it anymore, I had to leave. I've been staying with friends, but I can't keep imposing on them. What about other family? Aunt Linda? Or Linda died 2 years ago, cancer. She says. It's so matter-of-factly that it takes me a moment to process. My Aunt Linda, who used to send me birthday cards when my own mother forgot, is gone. You didn't tell me. We weren't exactly in touch. The accusation in her voice surprises me. That was your choice. You're the one who stopped calling. You never called me either. She's right, and we both know it. After I graduated college and started my career, our already minimal contact dwindled to nothing. I told myself it was because she never showed interest in my life, but the truth is more complicated. I stopped calling because it hurt too much to hear the distance in her voice, to feel like an obligation rather than a daughter. So what now? I ask. You want to move in with me and pretend we're a normal mother and daughter. You want to make up for 24 years of neglect. I don't know, she says honestly. I don't know what I want except a roof over my head and, maybe, maybe a chance to try to make things right between us. And if I say no, her face crumples slightly. Then I'll figure something else out. But Sarah, I'm not getting any younger. And you're all the family I have left. I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm asking for it anyway. I look at this broken woman across from me and try to reconcile her with the distant, indifferent mother of my childhood. Where is the woman who couldn't be bothered with my school events? Where is the mother who responded to my teenage attempts at connection with distracted nods and half-hearted murmurs? I need time to think about it, I say. How much time? I don't know. A week? 2 weeks? This isn't a decision I can make over coffee. She nods, looking relieved that I haven't said no outright. I understand. Here's my number. She slides a piece of paper across the table. I'm staying with my friend Carol in Queens, but I can't stay much longer. I take the paper without looking at it. I'll call you. We stand up awkwardly, and for a moment, I think she might try to hug me, but she just looks at me with those tired eyes and says, "Thank you for seeing me, for listening." I nod and walk away, leaving her standing by the table in that coffee shop that's too full of memories and possibilities I'm not ready to face. On the subway ride back to Manhattan, I stare at my reflection in the dark window and try to make sense of what just happened. For the first time in my adult life, my mother apologized to me. She acknowledged her failures, explained her fears, asked for my forgiveness without demanding it. It should feel like victory, like vindication. Instead, it just feels complicated. Back in my penthouse, everything feels different. The marble countertops and designer furniture that usually fill me with satisfaction now seem almost accusatory. I keep thinking about the worn sweater my mother was wearing, the way her hands shook when she reached for her coffee cup. I built this life to prove I didn't need her, but now she's asking to be part of it. I call Rachel, finally, she says, when she picks up. I've been worried about you. What's this family situation? My mother wants to move in with me. There's a long pause. Your mother. Sarah, you haven't spoken to your mother in years. What happened? I tell her everything. The phone call, the coffee shop meeting, the apology I never expected to receive. Rachel listens without interrupting, which is one of the reasons I love her. She knows when to offer advice and when to just be present. Wow, she says when I finish. How are you feeling? Confused, angry, guilty? I don't know. I'm pacing around my living room, unable to sit still. She apologized, Rachel. She actually acknowledged what she put me through. But does that change anything? Does saying sorry erase 24 years of neglect? I don't think that's the right question, Rachel says gently. The question is, what do you want? Not what you think you should do, not what would be fair or unfair, but what do you actually want? I stop pacing and stare out at the city lights. I want to not care. I want to be the kind of person who can say too little, too late, and mean it. But I'm not that person, apparently. What does that mean? It means part of me is glad she called. Part of me has been waiting my whole life for her to show up and fight for our relationship. And now she has, sort of, and I don't know what to do with that. Have you thought about what it would actually look like if she moved in? This is your space, your sanctuary. Are you prepared to share it with someone, especially someone with so much complicated history? I haven't thought about the practicalities, and Rachel's question forces me to confront them. My guest room has been exactly that. A room for guests who stay a night or two and then leave. The idea of it becoming someone's permanent bedroom, someone's home, feels strange, and not just someone, her. I don't know. I admit, I've lived alone for so long. I like my routines, my space. my privacy, and beyond the practical stuff. Are you emotionally prepared for this? Because letting her into your home means letting her into your life in a way you've never done as an adult. Are you ready for that kind of vulnerability? The word vulnerability hits me like a physical blow. I've spent my entire adult life building walls, creating distance, protecting myself from the kind of pain she caused me as a child. Letting her move in would mean tearing down those walls, and I'm not sure I'm strong enough for what might come flooding in. I need to see where she's staying, I say suddenly. I need to understand her situation before I can make this decision. 2 days later, I'm standing outside a small apartment building in Queens, checking the address my mother gave me 3 times before I'm satisfied I'm in the right place. The building is old but well maintained, the kind of place where working class families raise their children and elderly people live out their final years. Carol turns out to be a woman in her 60s. With kind eyes and a warm smile, she invites me in for coffee and immediately starts showing me pictures of her grandchildren. Her apartment is small but cozy, filled with the kind of lived-in comfort that comes from decades of family life. Your mother is in the back room, Carol says, leading me through a narrow hallway. She didn't know you were coming, did she? No, I wanted to surprise her. She talks about you all the time, you know. How proud she is of what you've accomplished. She showed me that magazine article about you. She carries it in her purse. This stops me in my tracks. She does? Oh yes. She must have shown it to me a dozen times. That's my daughter, she always says. Look what she did all by herself. The pride in Carol's voice when she repeats my mother's words is unmistakable, and it creates a strange ache in my chest. My mother carries my Forbes article in her purse. She brags about me to her friends. Where was this pride when I needed it as a child? Carol knocks on a door at the end of the hall. Linda, you have a visitor. My mother opens the door, and the shock on her face when she sees me is complete. Sarah, what are you doing here? I wanted to see where you were staying. She steps aside to let me into the room, and my heart clenches. It's barely large enough for a twin bed, a small dresser, and a chair by the window. Her belongings, what few she has, are neatly arranged, taking up as little space as possible. On the dresser, I see the Forbes magazine Carol mentioned, dog-eared and carefully preserved. This is where you've been living. Carol has been very generous. I don't want to complain. I look around the tiny space and try to imagine spending months here, being dependent on someone else's kindness, having no privacy, no space to call your own. For all her faults as a mother, she raised me with a fierce sense of independence. This situation must be killing her. How long have you been here? 2 months. But Carol's son is moving back home next week, and he'll need this room. So you'll be homeless. The word hangs in the air between us. She doesn't deny it. I'll figure something out, she says, but her voice lacks conviction. I sit down in the chair by the window, and she perches on the edge of the bed. Both of us careful to maintain distance in the cramped space. Carol says you carry my magazine article in your purse. She flushes and looks down at her hands. I'm proud of you. I know I never said it when you were growing up, but I've always been proud of you. Why didn't you say it then, when it might have mattered? Because I didn't think you needed to hear it from me. You were so self-sufficient, so confident. I thought if I told you I was proud, it might seem like I was taking credit for your accomplishments, and I knew I didn't deserve that credit. The logic is so twisted, so typically her, that I almost laugh. She withheld praise because she was proud. She stayed distant because she cared. I needed to hear it, I say quietly. Every child needs to hear that from their parent. I know that now. I've had a lot of time to think about my mistakes, especially these past few months. What happened to you, Mom? I mean, really happened. You weren't always like this, were you? She's quiet for so long, I think she won't answer. When she finally speaks, her voice is barely above a whisper. When your father left, I fell apart. Completely fell apart. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, could barely function. I had a 3-year-old daughter and no idea how to be a single mother. I was working at a diner, making barely enough to cover rent, and I was so tired all the time. So overwhelmed. She pauses, gathering herself. I went to see a doctor and he prescribed some pills to help with the depression. They helped at first, but then I needed more, and before I knew it, I was taking pills just to feel normal. I wasn't getting high or anything dramatic. I was just trying to survive each day. My blood runs cold. You were addicted to prescription drugs. For about 5 years, yes. I managed to hide it mostly. I still went to work, still paid the bills, still kept us housed and fed. But emotionally, I wasn't present. I couldn't be. The pills made everything feel distant and manageable, including you. Why didn't you get help? I tried eventually. When you were about 10, I realized what I was doing to you, and I got clean. But by then, the damage was done. We had this pattern of distance, and I didn't know how to break it. Every time I tried to get closer to you, you pulled away and I couldn't blame you. I think back to when I was 10, trying to remember if my mother changed in any way. There are vague memories of her trying to have conversations with me, asking about school, attempting to cook dinner together. But by then, I had learned to fend for myself. I had friends, activities, a life that didn't include her. When she finally reached out, I was already gone. You should have told me, I say. You should have explained what was happening. You were a child. It wasn't your burden to carry. But it was my burden to carry, don't you see? I carried the weight of thinking my own mother didn't love me. I carried the guilt of wondering what was wrong with me that made you so indifferent. I would have rather known the truth. Tears are streaming down her face again. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry for all of it. I look around this tiny room again, at this woman who gave birth to me, and then disappeared into her own pain for years. I think about the child I was, desperate for connection, and the woman I became, building walls to protect myself from that same desperation. If you move in with me, I say slowly, there would have to be rules. Her head snaps up, hope flooding her features. You're considering it, I'm considering it, but this isn't about forgiveness or redemption or any of that. This is about the fact that you're my mother, and you need help, and I have the means to provide it. That's all. She nods eagerly. I understand. Whatever you need. I mean it. This wouldn't be us playing house, pretending we're a normal family. This would be a practical arrangement with clear boundaries. What kind of boundaries? I haven't thought this through completely, but the words come anyway. Born from years of protecting myself. You stay in the guest room. You contribute to household expenses once you find work, and you will find work. You respect my space and my routines. And most importantly, you don't expect this to magically fix our relationship. We take things one day at a time. I can do that, she says quickly. I can absolutely do that. Looking at her eager face, I realize I've already made my decision. Maybe I made it the moment I saw this room. Or maybe I made it when she apologized in that coffee shop. Maybe I made it 24 years ago, when I first learned that love and family are more complicated than fairy tales suggest. Okay, I say, you can move in, but Mom, if this doesn't work out, if we can't make this arrangement work, you'll need to find somewhere else to go. I won't let you destroy the peace I've built for myself. I understand, she whispers. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for giving me this chance. As I leave Carol's apartment and head back to Manhattan, I wonder what I've just set in motion. Am I making the biggest mistake of my adult life? Or am I finally ready to face the relationship that has shaped me more than any other? Only time will tell. Moving day arrives on a grey Saturday morning in October. I hired a professional moving service. Even though my mother's belongings barely fill 3 boxes and 2 suitcases, watching the movers carry her meager possessions into my penthouse feels surreal. This woman who loomed so large in my childhood fits her entire life into the corner of my guest room. "This is beautiful, Sarah," she says, standing in the middle of my living room and turning slowly, taking it all in. "It's like something from a magazine." "It was in a magazine," I say, and immediately regret the sharpness in my voice. I'm nervous, defensive, already regretting this decision, and we haven't even made it through the first hour. I give her a tour of the apartment, explaining the household systems, how the security works, where the washer and dryer are located, which cleaning service comes on Tuesdays. She nods and asks practical questions, and I can see her trying to make herself as unobtrusive as possible. The guest room, your room, has its own bathroom. I explain as we stand in the doorway. I put fresh towels in there and cleared out the closet for your things. Thank you. This is more space than I've had in months. We stand there awkwardly, both of us aware that this is the moment where our arrangement becomes real. She's going to sleep in this room tonight and tomorrow, and for however long this experiment lasts. I usually work from home on Mondays and Fridays, I tell her. My office is down the hall and I'll need quiet during business hours. Of course, I grocery shop on Sunday mornings. We can go together tomorrow so you can pick out things you like. The word together feels strange in my mouth when referring to my mother. We haven't done anything together in over a decade. I don't want to impose on your routines, she says. You're living here now. We need to figure out how to make this work. That first week is an exercise in careful politeness. We move around each other like strangers sharing a hotel suite. Overly considerate and unnaturally quiet, she makes coffee in the morning before I wake up, leaving me a full pot and cleaning up any evidence of her presence. She does her own laundry, buys her own groceries with money I don't know how she's acquired, and spends most of her time in her room or on the balcony when she thinks I won't notice. It's exactly what I said I wanted. Minimal impact on my life. But it's driving me crazy. On Thursday evening, I come home from a client dinner to find her sitting at my kitchen island with a laptop I've never seen before, typing intently. "Where did you get that?" I ask. She looks up, startled. "Oh, I borrowed it from Carol. I'm looking for work online." "You don't have to borrow a laptop. I have extras." I didn't want to ask. "You're not asking, I'm offering." I go to my office and return with a MacBook I use for travel. "Here, use this." She accepts it hesitantly, as if it might disappear if she holds it too tightly. "Thank you, I'll be careful with it. It's a computer, not a priceless artifact. Use it however you need to." I pour myself a glass of wine and sit across from her at the island. This is the closest we've been since she moved in. The first time we've shared space, without one of us fleeing to opposite ends of the apartment. "What kind of work are you looking for?" "Anything really. Administrative work, receptionist positions. I have good references from the dental office." I look at her typing with 2 fingers, squinting at the screen, and realize she's probably never been comfortable with technology. The job market she's entering is completely different from the one she knew even 5 years ago. "Do you know how to use LinkedIn?" "I've heard of it." I move around the island to sit beside her, and she tenses slightly at my proximity. "Here, let me show you. It's basically social media for professional networking. For the next hour, I walk her through setting up a profile, connecting with former colleagues, and using the job search function. She's a quick learner when she's not intimidated, and I find myself remembering that she's actually intelligent, something I forgot during all those years of viewing her through the lens of my childhood hurt. This is remarkable, she says, navigating through job listings with growing confidence. I had no idea there were so many opportunities available online. The world changed while you weren't looking, I say, then immediately regret the implication that she's been out of touch or behind the times, but she doesn't take offense. Yes, it did, and I need to catch up. That night, for the first time since she moved in, I don't hear her tiptoeing around the apartment, trying to be invisible. The sound of typing drifts from her room until well after midnight, and somehow it doesn't bother me. It sounds like hope. The breakthrough comes 2 weeks later. On a rainy Tuesday morning, I'm in my office taking a video call with a client in Los Angeles. When I hear raised voices from the kitchen, my mother is on the phone, and she sounds upset. I understand there was a miscommunication, but I was told the position was still available. She's saying, "Yes, I can come in for an interview. Today? Yes, I can be there in 2 hours." She's practically vibrating with nervous energy when I finish my call and find her in the kitchen. "Interview?" I ask. "Yes, for an office manager position at a veterinary clinic in Midtown. But Sarah, I don't know what to wear. I don't have interview clothes, and I can't afford to buy any right now." I look at her worn jeans and thrift store sweater and realize she's right. The professional wardrobe I take for granted is completely foreign to her current circumstances. "What size are you?" "I'm sorry." "Clothing size." We're about the same height, 20. Minutes later, she's standing in my walk-in closet, looking overwhelmed by the rows of designer suits and dresses. "I can't wear your expensive clothes," she protests. "What if I spill something or tear something? Then I'll buy new clothes." Pick something that makes you feel confident. She chooses a simple navy blazer and matching pants, one of my more conservative outfits, but it fits her well and transforms her appearance completely. In the mirror, she looks like the professional woman she's trying to become, rather than someone down on her luck. I look professional, competent, hireable. I adjust the collar of the blazer and step back to assess the full effect. "You look like someone they'd be lucky to have." For a moment, our eyes meet in the mirror, and I see something I haven't seen from her in years. Genuine gratitude, mixed with a kind of wonder. As if she can't quite believe this version of herself is real. "Thank you," she says quietly. "Not just for the clothes, for believing I can do this." "Of course you can do this. You raised a child alone while working multiple jobs. Managing a veterinary office should be easy compared to that." The interview goes well enough that they ask her to come back for a second interview the following day. That evening, she cooks dinner for both of us, the first meal we've shared in my apartment. It's nothing fancy, pasta with vegetables, but it fills the space with warmth and the kind of domestic normalcy I've never experienced as an adult. They seemed impressed with my experience, she tells me over dinner. Apparently, working at multiple medical offices gives me an advantage. I understand the administrative side and patient relations. "When will you know?" They said they'd call by Friday. Friday comes and goes without a call. By Monday, I can see the disappointment settling over her like a heavy coat. She's back to tiptoeing around the apartment, back to making herself invisible. "Maybe I should call them," she says Tuesday morning, but her voice lacks conviction. "Maybe you should apply to 10 more places." I counter. One rejection doesn't mean anything. I'm 58 years old, Sarah. Maybe I'm kidding myself thinking anyone wants to hire me. The defeat in her voice triggers something protective in me that I didn't know existed. Don't you dare give up. You've been looking for work for 2 weeks. Some people search for months. You don't understand what it's like, don't I? I set down my coffee cup harder than necessary. I've been rejected plenty of times. The difference is, I kept going because I didn't have a choice. Well, you don't have a choice either. You can't live in my guest room forever, feeling sorry for yourself. The words come out harsher than I intended, but they have the desired effect. Her spine straightens, and for the first time since moving in, she looks me directly in the eye with something approaching defiance. You're right, she says. I'm being pathetic. You're not being pathetic. You're being human, but you need to remember who you are underneath all this recent hardship. You survived drug addiction. You raised me alone. You worked for 30 years. One job rejection doesn't erase any of that. She stares at me for a long moment, and I realize I've just acknowledged her strength for the first time in my adult life. More than that, I've defended her to herself. When did you become so wise? She asks. I had to grow up fast. I wonder where I learned that. It's not quite forgiveness, but it's something. An acknowledgement that maybe her failures as a mother taught me valuable lessons about resilience and self-reliance. Maybe her absence forced me to develop the strength that's carried me this far. The job offer comes 3 days later, not from the veterinary clinic, but from a different position she'd applied for. Office coordinator at a small law firm. The pay isn't much, but it's enough for her to contribute to household expenses and start rebuilding her independence. I start Monday, she tells me, beaming with the kind of joy I haven't seen from her since I was very young. They liked that I could start immediately and that I had experience with difficult personalities. Difficult personalities? I told them I'd raised a teenager. They laughed and said I was hired. That night, she insists on taking me out to dinner, to celebrate. Her treat, she emphasizes. Even though I know she can't afford it, we go to a small Italian restaurant in Little Italy. Nothing fancy, but warm and welcoming. I know this doesn't change everything between us, she says, as we wait for our food. I know I can't undo the damage I did when you were growing up. But Sarah, these past few weeks, living with you, seeing the woman you've become, I'm not just proud of you, I'm grateful to you. Grateful. You turned out to be a better person than I ever was, despite having me as a mother. That takes strength I'm not sure I would have had in your position. I twirl pasta around my fork, considering her words. I spent so many years being angry at you for not being the mother I needed. But maybe you were exactly the mother I needed to become who I am. That's very generous. It's not generous. It's practical. I can either spend my life bitter about what I didn't get, or I can appreciate what I did get, even if it came in a form I didn't expect. We eat in comfortable silence for a while, the soft clink of silverware against ceramic plates creating a gentle rhythm between us. It's a sound that should be familiar. How many meals have we shared over the years? But somehow this feels different. There's no underlying tension, no unspoken resentments poisoning the air between us. The restaurant's ambient lighting casts a warm golden glow across the white tablecloth, and I find myself studying her face in this forgiving illumination, the way the light softens the deep lines around her eyes, lines that speak of years of worry and disappointment, how her shoulders seem less rigid than they did when we first sat down an hour ago. She's wearing a navy blue blouse I bought her for Christmas 2 years ago, one she claimed to love, but that I never saw her wear until tonight. Her hair is different too, softer somehow, styled in a way that frames her face, rather than pulling it back severely. Even her posture is different. She's leaning slightly forward, engaged, present in a way she rarely was during our stilted holiday dinners and obligatory birthday calls. Her movements are careful, deliberate, as if she's afraid that speaking too loudly or moving too quickly might shatter this fragile piece we've constructed over the course of this meal. Every gesture seems considered. The way she dabs her lips with her napkin, how she pauses to really taste her food instead of eating mechanically, the way she sets down her fork between bites as if she's remembering long-forgotten lessons about proper table manners. For the first time in decades, I can see past the years of accumulated hurt and deliberate distance to the person underneath. The harsh fluorescent lights of my childhood kitchen had never been kind to her, and neither had the stress of those years. My father's drinking, the financial struggles, the way disappointment had settled into her bones like arthritis. But here, in this gentle restaurant lighting, with wine softening her features and genuine conversation coloring her cheeks, I can see glimpses of who she must have been before life wore her down. The woman sitting across from me isn't the cold, unreachable figure who dominated my childhood memories. The mother who seemed to exist in a perpetual state of exhaustion and frustration, who spoke in clipped sentences and moved through our house like she was always on her way somewhere else. Nor is she the idealized saint of my adult fantasies. The mother I sometimes imagined she could have been, if only I had been different, better, more worthy of her attention. She's just a flawed human being who did her best with tools that weren't adequate for the job of raising a daughter who needed more than she knew how to give. I watch her hands as she cuts her salmon into precise, small pieces, the same methodical way she used to prepare my school lunches. Each sandwich cut diagonally, each apple slice arranged just so. Her hands are older now, spotted with age and marked by years of work, but they move with the same careful attention to detail. Even then, she had shown love through these small acts of care, though I was too young and too hurt to recognize them as love. I had only seen what was missing: the hugs, the bedtime stories, the easy affection that seemed to come so naturally to other mothers, and missed entirely the quiet devotion in those perfectly prepared meals. She catches me watching her and smiles, a small self-conscious expression that transforms her entire face. "What?" she asks softly, and there's something vulnerable in the question, as if she's worried I might be cataloguing her faults. "Nothing," I say, but then I reconsider. Honesty has brought us this far. Maybe it can take us further. I was just thinking about how you used to make my lunches, how perfect they always were. Her smile widens, and for a moment, she looks almost young. "You always ate everything," she says, "even the carrots. I used to worry you weren't getting enough vegetables, so I'd pack extra." "I remember," I say, and I do. The little bags of carrot sticks, the apple slices that never turned brown because she'd brushed them with lemon juice. I used to think all the other kids' lunches looked so boring compared to mine. Really. The surprise in her voice breaks my heart a little. "You never said anything." "I was 8, I say. "I didn't know how to tell you I was proud of my lunch." We sit with that for a moment, both of us probably thinking about all the other things we never said, all the small appreciations that went unspoken because we didn't know how to bridge the gap between feeling and expression. "Where do we go from here?" she asks, as we wait for the check, her voice barely above a whisper. The question seems to surprise her as much as it does me, as if she hadn't planned to ask it, but couldn't help herself. She's folding and refolding her napkin, a nervous habit I remember from my childhood. Something she did during parent-teacher conferences, when teachers would diplomatically suggest I was very bright but not applying myself. Or when my father came home late smelling of alcohol and disappointment, his excuses growing more elaborate and less believable with each passing month. Her fingers are trembling slightly as she works the fabric, and I realize how much courage this conversation is taking. For her, asking questions about the future has always been dangerous territory. Too many plans have fallen through. Too many hopes have been disappointed. But here she is, risking it anyway. I don't know, I admit, surprised by my own honesty. For so long, I've had answers for everything. Business strategies mapped out in quarterly projections. Life plans broken down into achievable milestones. 5-year visions, complete with contingency scenarios. My success has been built on my ability to anticipate problems, to have solutions ready before challenges even arise. But this territory is unmapped, full of potential pitfalls and unexpected grace, and all my professional expertise feels useless here. We take it one day at a time. Like I said, I continue, trying to find solid ground in the midst of this uncertainty. You work your job, contribute to the household, build your independence. We learn how to be adults who happen to be related. The words sound clinical, even to my own ears, like I'm outlining a business partnership, rather than describing a relationship with the woman who gave birth to me, who changed my diapers and taught me to tie my shoes, and sat up with me when I had nightmares. But maybe that's what we need right now. Clear boundaries, defined expectations, a structure we can both understand. We've never been good at the emotional stuff, but we can handle logistics. We can manage practical arrangements. She nods slowly, processing this. Like roommates, she says, and there's something almost relieved in her voice. I can do roommates. I've had roommates before. Good roommates, I clarify, because suddenly this feels important. Roommates who care about each other, who want the best for each other. The best roommates, she agrees, and there's a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth now. Roommates who don't leave dishes in the sink, and who remember to buy milk when it's their turn. Exactly, I say, and I'm smiling too now, because this feels manageable. We can start with milk and dishes, and work our way up to the harder stuff. And maybe, eventually, we learn how to be friends. The word friends startles me, hitting something deep in my chest that I thought I had sealed off years ago. I've never thought of my mother as someone I could be friends with. Friendship requires mutual respect, shared interests, the ability to choose each other's company. Our relationship had always been defined by obligation and biology, not choice. But looking at her now, this woman who's starting over at 58, who's swallowed her pride to ask for help, who's trying to rebuild not just her life, but our relationship from the ground up, I think maybe it's possible. Her eyes are hopeful, but guarded, like she's prepared for rejection, but daring to hope anyway. It's an expression I recognize, because I've worn it myself. In boardrooms when proposing risky ventures. In relationships when allowing myself to be vulnerable. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, I think with bitter irony. Maybe, I say, and I mean it. Let's see how the roommate thing goes first. She laughs, and it's a sound I'd forgotten existed. Warm and genuine, and completely without the brittle edge that characterized most of our interactions when I was growing up. It's the laugh I remember from very early childhood, before my father's drinking got worse, before her disappointment in life calcified into distance. Hearing it now is like finding a photograph I thought was lost forever. 3 months later, we've settled into a routine that works better than either of us dared to hope. The apartment, which had felt like a shrine to my solitude for so long, has transformed into something warmer, more alive. There are small signs of her presence everywhere now. A coffee mug in the sink that isn't mine. Reading glasses on the kitchen counter. A cardigan draped over the back of the living room chair. the faint scent of her lavender hand cream in the hallway. She leaves for work before I wake up, always careful not to disturb me. Her coffee cup already washed and placed in the drying rack. A small courtesy that somehow means more than grand gestures ever could. Sometimes she leaves little notes. Milk running low, or forecast calls for rain. Written in her careful teacher's handwriting on the small notepad we keep by the phone. I've started saving them, though I'm not sure why. When she returns, in the evening, usually around 6:30, she brings stories about her colleagues that have become the highlight of my day. She works at a small law firm downtown, nothing prestigious, but she seems genuinely happy there, in a way I don't remember her ever being happy about work before. She tells me about Margaret, the paralegal who keeps plants on every available surface and talks to them like they're her children. About David, the senior partner who insists on dictating letters as if it's still 1985, but who always asks about her grandchildren. She doesn't have because he's mixed her up with someone else, and she doesn't have the heart to correct him. Her stories are detailed now, full of character observations and gentle humor, told with the enthusiasm of someone who's finally found a place where she belongs. She describes the way Mrs. Henderson in accounting always brings homemade cookies on Fridays, how she saves the chocolate chip ones for my mother because she remembered her mentioning they were her favorite. She talks about how the young associate, Mr. Chen, stays until 9 every night, working himself ragged, but always takes time to help her when the computer system confuses her, explaining things patiently without making her feel stupid. He reminds me of you at that age, she said once, and the comparison caught me off guard. So serious, so determined to prove himself. I told him what I should have told you then, that working yourself to death isn't the same as living. She's learning to see people as individuals rather than obstacles. And I realized this might be the first time in her life she's worked somewhere she actually enjoys, where she feels valued for who she is, rather than just what she can produce. The change in her is remarkable. She stands straighter, speaks with more confidence, laughs more easily. Work has given her something I never could, a sense of her own worth that doesn't depend on anyone else's approval. She cooks dinner twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday, as we've agreed after careful negotiation, and I take care of the rest. Her meals are simple but carefully prepared. Pot roast with vegetables that melt in your mouth, chicken casserole that tastes like childhood Sunday dinners, meatloaf with mashed potatoes that she makes from scratch, peeling each potato by hand, even though I've told her the instant kind is fine. These are comfort foods from her childhood, recipes she learned from her own mother, dishes that speak of love, expressed through nourishment rather than words. She sets the table with cloth napkins and uses the good plates I usually reserve for company, as if sharing dinner with me is an occasion worth marking. She lights candles sometimes, dim the harsh overhead lights, creates an atmosphere that transforms my sterile dining room into something resembling a home. The first time she did this, I almost protested. It seemed too formal, too much like she was trying too hard, but then I realized she wasn't performing for me. She was honoring the moment, treating our shared meal as something sacred. She was doing what she'd always done, showing love the only way she knew how. We watched the news together most evenings, sitting on opposite ends of my large sectional sofa, arguing about politics in a way that feels almost normal. She's more liberal than I expected, more thoughtful in her opinions. Her views have been shaped by her work at the legal aid clinic, where she volunteers on weekends, by the stories she hears from people who've fallen through the cracks of the system I've spent my career mastering. When she disagrees with me, she does so with reasons rather than emotions, and I find myself actually listening instead of just waiting for my turn to speak. She challenges my assumptions about poverty and social services, about what people deserve and why they struggle. Sometimes she changes my mind. Sometimes I change hers. More often, we agree to disagree and change the subject to something safer. The weather, her work stories, my latest business ventures. But even our disagreements feel productive rather than destructive. We're learning to argue without attacking, to disagree without dismissing. It's a skill neither of us possessed when I was growing up, when every difference of opinion felt like a rejection, every conflict like evidence that we were fundamentally incompatible. She started dating someone, a widower named Frank she met through work, whose wife died 2 years ago from cancer. He's a court reporter, she tells me, quiet and kind, with grown children who live in other states. The fact that she tells me about him, asks my opinion about whether she should accept his invitation to dinner or go to the theatre, treats me like a confidant rather than a judge, feels like the most natural thing in the world, and also like a miracle. She describes him with shy pleasure. How he brings her coffee every morning without being asked. How he listens when she talks, instead of waiting for his turn to speak. How he makes her laugh with his dry observations about the lawyers and judges they both work with. She sounds like a teenager, with her first crush when she talks about him. And it's endearing in a way that surprises me. I'd never thought of my mother as someone capable of giddiness, of romance, of the kind of joy that makes you forget yourself. He asked me to go away for the weekend, she told me last week, her cheeks pink with embarrassment and excitement. To the mountains. There's a bed and breakfast he heard about. That sounds nice, I said, and meant it. You should go. Really? She looked surprised, as if she'd expected me to disapprove or make some cutting remark about propriety. Really? You deserve to be happy, Mom. The word Mom slipped out naturally, without the careful consideration I usually gave it, and we both noticed. She smiled, the kind of smile that starts in your eyes and spreads slowly across your face. And I realized it had been months since I'd called her by her first name. When I have work events or dates of my own, she asks how they went without prying, offers advice when I want it, respects my privacy when I don't. She's learned to read my moods, to know when I want to talk and when I need space. It's a skill I never knew she possessed, this ability to be present without being intrusive. After particularly difficult days, she'll make tea without being asked and sit with me in comfortable silence. She doesn't try to fix my problems or offer platitudes. She just exists beside me, solid and warm and unexpectedly comforting. It's the kind of support I always wanted from her, but never knew how to ask for. We're not best friends. We're not the mother-daughter pair from movies who share everything and finish each other's sentences, who go shopping together and paint each other's nails. But we're something we've never been before. Two adults who care about each other and are learning to show it in ways that feel authentic rather than obligated. On a Sunday morning in January, almost 4 months after she moved in, I wake up to the smell of coffee and something baking. Warm, sweet scents that pull me from sleep more effectively than any alarm clock. The apartment feels different on Sunday mornings, when neither of us has anywhere urgent to be. More relaxed, more like a home than just a place where we happen to sleep. She finds her mother in the kitchen, baking blueberry muffins. Her childhood favorite. It's a small gesture, but one that reveals a deeper truth. Her mother had always been paying attention, even when it seemed like she wasn't. As they talk, long-buried emotions surface. Gratitude, regret, and love are finally spoken out loud. For the first time, it's the mother who fights for their relationship, who opens up and asks to be part of her daughter's life. And in response, the daughter lets her in. They share an awkward, healing hug, the first real one since childhood. And with it, something begins to mend between them. Over warm muffins and coffee, sunlight streaming into the apartment, the daughter realizes that all her striving and success never filled the void like this moment does. Her mother will never be the perfect parent from her fantasies, but maybe they can be what each other needs now. Two imperfect people choosing to love each other, honestly and imperfectly. It's not a fairy tale. It's better. It's real. And for the first time, that's more than enough.